County, southeast of Asheville. This is Main Street in Chimney Rock. Much of the town reduced to rubble. The road washing out into the river at one point. Cars destroyed, debris piled high through the heart of the town.
Help.
Help now.
We need help for this whole area. We can't be the only ones left out of the government's help.
Mike Roberts is the pastor at Grassy Knob Church in Lake Lure. He and his wife Mary have been busy distributing water, food, and life-saving supplies from a grocery store parking lot.
We've been having hot food in the mornings. We cook it at home and bring it here, but we're running out of hot food.
They're receiving donations from across the county, including Paul and Kara Brock, owners of Lord Market and Grill.
Resources, we're going to keep feeding folks as they're here working, which seems to be for a foreseeable future.
Paul and Kara were just airlifted from their house in the community of Bat Cave yesterday.
It's almost like we've had a Katrina-type incident in a place that has a lot less infrastructure and a lot more. The topography is a whole lot more challenging.
When they saw the devastation in their village of 400, they were determined to chip in, turning the patio of their restaurant into a makeshift grill for hungry residents and first responders, cooking any food they have with a donated generator. But many of their neighbors are still trapped tonight, cut off by the devastating scenes near Chimney Rock.
They have nowhere to go and they've lost everything, and they're truly like in the street with fires and trying to feed their neighbors.
For volunteers like Mike, the calls for help are louder than ever.
These people love this country just like I do, and they need help.
In various places in Tennessee and North Carolina, people have been setting up little makeshift donation centers, kind of like the one you just saw in that clip, where Hurricane Helene victims can come and maybe get a hot meal if they're lucky, or at the very least get some canned goods, maybe some bottled water, blankets, necessities. You know, a lot of these people are living outside right now. They're sleeping in tents. They're camping around makeshift fires because our government will spend millions and millions of dollars to house illegal immigrants in luxury hotels in New York City. But if your home gets wiped out by a hurricane, they'll leave you to fend for yourself. That's basically the current state of America, and there's no denying it because we're watching it play out right now. But as I said, people have been setting up these donation centers, obviously not taking money donations, but just, bringing in supplies from all over. There's people coming from all over the South, all over America. Hell, I heard of people coming from as far as Canada, bringing in supplies to these areas. They're gathering them at these donation centers. They're distributing them to people. People know where to go to get it. But now FEMA and other government agencies have rolled into town, and they're shutting down all of these donation centers. They're taking the donations, claiming that they're going to give them out themselves, but they're not even giving it out. And the stuff they are giving out, they're taking credit for it. Also, there's a lot of doctors and nurses and stuff that have traveled to this area. Some were already living in this area, who have set up little areas where they're providing first aid. Obviously, they're not doing major surgeries or anything like that, but they're providing whatever help they can. I heard about one story where some guy was struck in the head by debris, and he had a big gaping wound in his head. And they had to hike through the storm for miles. They brought him to this little first aid area, and FEMA tried to shut them down and stop them from patching the dude up, even though they didn't have anyone on scene to help him. So they wanted the guy to just sit there injured. So the doctors and nurses who were there were like, screw you. And they went against FEMA, and they went ahead and patched the dude up anyway. So obviously I'm not dealing with it directly, but this is what they're dealing with. And this is what we're dealing with as Americans. We're watching this botched response to this storm, and it's absolutely disgusting. And from the looks of things, your everyday Americans, the people who lived in these areas and the people who traveled there to help them, It looks like they had the situation under better control before the government rolled in. You know, FEMA has rolled in. They've shut down these helicopters from doing search and rescue missions. Meanwhile, they're not staging any missions themselves. They rolled in, stopped people from distributing all of these supplies and these donated goods, right? Meanwhile, they're not setting up, places to give out these goods themselves. They're not distributing these goods, in a more efficient way, damn sure. And they're coming in and telling people who are doing first aid for, whatever wounds people may have that can't make it to the hospital, obviously, can't make it anywhere to get help. They're telling them that they don't have, the rights to do this. They're not licensed. You can't do this. You can't do that. It's just insane. But instead of taking my word for it, let's go ahead and listen and watch as someone who is there explains what's happening, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
So to everybody that heard about all the supplies and planes that were coming from downtown Greenville Airport and flying up to North Carolina to deliver supplies, water, whatever anybody was donating and people were needing was being sent up there. Well, today it's awfully quiet, and we see these helicopters lined up, and they have a booth set up here and everything. Turns out that's FEMA. FEMA has shut down all the local donation operations that were going on and delivering supplies, and now they're saying that they're not allowed to deliver any more supplies anymore. So all these people are, unfortunately, have all these supplies but cannot take it up there. So that's our government for you. Oh, and another thing, those helicopters that have been sitting there, I've been sitting there since this morning. Haven't seen a single movement, just a bunch of impacking of important equipment and nothing happening. So I'm so sorry, North Carolina. We tried.
So as you see, the situation in North Carolina continues to get crazier and crazier. But we also got stories coming out of Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida as well. In fact, they just announced the youngest victims of this storm, which were month-old twins from Georgia. I want to go ahead and dive into this quick little story. A heartbreaking photo shows newborn Georgia twins, who are the youngest known victims of Hurricane Helene, killed alongside their mom before some of their grandparents even got to meet them. Kaiser and Casimir Williams, who were born just a week before Helene hit, were crushed with mom Kobe Williams, 27, when a tree crashed through their trailer home in rural Thompson, Georgia, their grief-stricken family says. "It's devastating," said the twins' granddad, Obie Williams. "Now I'll never get to meet my grandsons. I'd seen pictures when they were born, and pictures every day since, but I hadn't made it out there yet to meet them. Their grandfather said his daughter had promised to hunker down in the bathroom when she knew it wasn't possible to evacuate with such young babies. The twins' bodies were discovered lying underneath their mother when relatives dodged fallen trees and downed power lines to check on the trio just hours after the hurricane tore through and ravaged their town." So this is a story coming out of Georgia. I know a lot of the focus right now is on North Carolina, and rightfully so. A lot of my personal focus is on North Carolina as well. But, when you hear about these other stories coming out of other areas, in a way, it puts things into perspective for you, because you got just devastating stories from Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina. It's just insane how widespread the disaster is from this storm. It's something that I've personally never seen. Honestly, it's starting to look like right now, it's starting to look like something none of us have ever seen. Something the history books has never seen. With the amount of people who have perished, and we got hundreds missing, and I don't believe the death toll. I don't believe the numbers of missing. I think they're higher because everyone who lives in these areas say that the death toll and the number of missing is higher than what's being reported. And if you go online right now, you will see hundreds and hundreds of missing persons posts and people looking for their family members who they haven't heard from yet, some of which may still be alive, trapped on the mountains of North Carolina. Lord knows what they're going through, and I'm hoping that help will arrive. But a lot of the help that was supposed to come, as you heard in that clip, hey, they're shutting down a lot of the airplanes and the helicopters that were flying into the area. So, I mean, at this point, we shouldn't be here this morning talking about the fact that, hey, people are still trapped and stranded. At the very least, obviously, this problem isn't going to go away overnight, but at the very least, that should have been handled by now. And, I mean, the amount of people who they may never find, you got to think about that as well. But we'll get into more details about that in a future video. For now, let me know what you think about all of this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.